How do I start this thing?
Have you plugged the bloody USB in?
Yeah, it's in.
Nah, man, that's the wrong port. Oh, wait, it's flashing now.
It's recording.
Well, let's start this thing, fool.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amelia.
Hi, I'm Sam. Welcome to Ask the Duo podcast, a podcast where we get deep into those late-night, unfiltered conversations.
We'll be discussing all things lifestyle, relationship, mindset, and more.
All right, let's get to it. Hello.
Welcome back.
I realized I was, the microphone was in my mouth when I said hello.
You just shoved it right in your mouth.
Not literally, guys.
You're disgusting. Well, anyway, so in one of our latest episodes, episode 46, you would have heard that we're talking about friend zones, being friend zoned, or you friend zoning someone. And we thought that it'd be a good sequel and talk about breakups. So more so, when do you know it's time to break up, or when to know that the relationship is over? And it's more like when to know the breakup in the relationship because it's just not working out anymore between the two of you. You've had more relationships than I do, so I'm sure that you've had to do breakups or deal with breakups more than I do, so I wanted to hear a bit more about your situation. Breakups aren't fun, for sure. So in your time of like dating, were there like times when you realized that it's just not going to work out anymore?
Of course. It has happened a lot in the past, but that's all part of learning, right? And it's just a matter of making that call as to when you mutually, or even sometimes one-sided, call that breakup.
Yeah, so what are some like real life experience from you where you knew that it's just not going to work out?
In the past, it could have been a maturity thing for me as well. And what I mean by that is if I evaluated the situation in a deeper level, it may have been a different outcome or ending. So there could have been situations where if I stuck it in for... Sorry, that sounded wrong.
If you stuck it in there because you didn't stick it in.
If I shoved it in, no lube. No, if I stayed in the relationship for a little bit longer, it could have had a different outcome, right? So
yeah,
that's what I mean.
What were some of the situations? What made you want to break up? Was it because you think they were different, or you just didn't like the relationship, you got bored? Like, what was it?
Yeah, so in the previous relationship, I said one of the biggest things that you need to look at is yourself. You need to look after yourself. So one of my examples is of that, where I evaluated myself thinking, okay, is this what I want to pursue a longer relationship with this particular person, i.e. the characteristics, the attitudes, their ambitions in life? Do I see myself with this particular person? And for me, I look at long-term relationships with girls as opposed to some people may look at like a short-term thing, etc., etc. So most of my breakups have been more so evaluating scenarios like that. So different girls that I was with, did I foresee myself being with that person in that situation? So to give you an example, one girl I broke up with, she was very quiet. I wouldn't say didn't have ambitions, just didn't push herself.
Didn't strive for anything.
Yeah, and she definitely had potential because she was smart. She was really pretty. Like physically, she was all there. But in terms of intellectually, she wasn't all there in terms of pushing herself.
Yeah.
So for me, I felt that it affected me because I wanted, and still to this day, I'm obviously like now that I'm married, but I want to be with someone who's a go-getter too. If I'm pushing myself to be the best version of myself, I want my partner to be the same thing too.
Yeah, because it kind of gives you motivation seeing how motivated they are. Yeah.
And you guys can learn together and talk about it and push each other. So in that scenario, I didn't see that. So that's one situation I basically said, nah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I had one other where didn't push herself, wasn't very ambitious, went through a few things in her life that just dragged herself down from that. Unfortunately, like it's just she went through a lot of things that she wasn't strong enough to pull herself out.
Yeah.
And I did myself as a partner to provide her with that support, but it got to a point where I can't provide that support because that support is needed by a professional. I felt that me being around there was pulling her out of fixing herself individually.
Yeah, because she has to focus on too many different things, and she needed more time to focus on herself and help herself. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So me pulling out of that relationship was to push her to focus on herself.
Yep. Okay, so that are some things that kind of touches on how you know when it's time to break up. But I wanted to add some things for me personally. I'm a person, like, as you would know, but for other people who don't really know me, I'm a person who really I just love to give out my small updates of, as simple as, oh, today I got this in the mail, or like I did this today, or things like that. And I really love sharing that with people that I care about. So I do that to you all the time, and that's how we keep our communication, like the smallest things. But I know for sure if I don't have an interest in this person anymore is when I don't even want to do that. I'm like, I'm not even going to bother, or I can't be bothered, or if I send it, it doesn't really matter anyway. Like, one, maybe they won't care, or two, like I just don't really care about sharing that with them. So that's when I know that I don't really have interest in them anymore.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense, because your significant other, or even just your partner, those small insignificant things or events are events that you want to share.
Yeah, it's like moments that you want to just share with them.
Yeah. So, I mean, when it gets to that point where you don't want to share it, it's kind of like, well,
it's a clear sign. Like, I don't need to guess anymore. Like, that's my definite sign. Another one is similar to that updates thing is I'm also I'm the person in our relationship where I always suggest, let's go here, or let's go this, or go do this, or I saw this thing, it looks pretty cool, can we try it, kind of thing. So if I have no desire to do anything with you, or get you to go out and do something with me, or just to have some sort of activity that shares a moment together, if I have no desire for that, that's another sign where I'm like, my emotionally I've had enough of this relationship where I just don't want to try anymore.
Yep. And then now that you've mentioned two situations or scenarios that you I guess it's your telltale sign that it's done deal. Have you ever had to apply that? Like, have you got any real life scenarios?
Yeah, this has happened before. And like, just before I move on to that, what I want to say for that second point where you don't have a desire to want to be around someone anymore, I'm more focused on the point as like you continuously feel this way. It's not after, say, a fight and I'm like, oh, I don't want to see you because I've argued with you. Like, those are heated moments when you're not thinking rationally. So I'm saying like you feel this way consistently where you just don't have a drive to want to go out with them anymore or do activities with them. It's like a continuous thing. It's not a one-off thing where you've just had a fight and then you like, nah, I don't want to see you.
Yeah, and I want to add, it's the same thing as me too. So there's examples that I gave in terms of scenarios. Those were not discussions or whatever that happened after a fight. It was more
like a challenging moment.
Yeah, it was like something that was over time that was sort of brewing.
Yeah, I haven't had that many relationships, but yeah, I've had moments where I have had situations where I just didn't feel the need to update them because, yeah, like communication is a big thing for me, and if I don't feel like talking to you, then yeah, that's already a clear sign. I don't really want to talk to you, and if you don't want to talk to someone, it means that you don't really have an interest anymore. And then if you don't and it leads to not wanting to hang around them, because if you hang around them, then you have to chat to them, right? So if I don't have a desire to want to do anything with that person, then yeah, it has happened, and that's like exactly the situation. There's not more to it. Like, I just didn't want to reach out.
No, that makes sense. No, definitely makes sense.
But what I wanted to also add to this though is, yeah, there's a clear fine line between it, because if these thoughts is prolonged over a long period of time, then you know that it's definitely time, because it's like these emotions that's been sitting on your heart for so long, like you can't keep holding on to that, because it's going to stress you out too. And like for us, like when we've had challenging moments, there have been times like this, like years ago, when we were still learning about each other, still trying to grow with each other. There were moments where I've had this too, like where I didn't want to update you, or I didn't want to hang out with you. Like, I didn't have activities that I want to invite you to, like, come hang out. But the thing was, the difference was that I knew that it's just a momentary thing, and I was thinking long term, like, do I want to continue to not see you, or do I want to continue to not message you? And my answer was always no. Like, it's just temporary. Like, I just needed some time to myself, because either something disappointed me or we did have an argument. But that's the lead up question. It's like, do you see this as a long term thing? Like, do you want to, in the long term, after you don't see this person, does it matter to you that you don't talk to them anymore, or you don't see them? And my answer was always like, yeah, I still want to see you and talk to you. So I know it was a momentary thing.
Right. So you're saying that because it was a spur of the moment, for whatever reason,
well, it's not a spur of a moment. Like, similar to an episode we were talking about where you can fall in and out of love. So what I saw for us that happened where these occasions occurred, I think it was more like we fell out of love, either because we were both stressed over something. We both have our own individual things that we were going through. So our communication levels weren't as close as it was, and intimacy wasn't as close as it was. So we kind of fell out of love, and I didn't really always wanted to update you. But then a leading up question to myself was, do I want to stop updating you on my day? And my answer was no. I still want to be able to include you in my life and still update you on the small things. It's just at this current point in time, I just wanted to give myself that little break, the little breather. And once that's kind of gone through, then, you know, I'm chatting to you again. And that's usually like a few hours a day or something like that. It's not like a 1 month break kind of thing.
in the past, I wouldn't say specifically for us, more so other relationships. I've had those situations where you just need to have like a breathing space to reevaluate. I wouldn't say the relationship, but that current situation. Yeah. So for whatever, like for me, whatever situation that made me upset or whatever it is, it's more so evaluating whether that situation was just me being emotional or irrational in terms of like how I came to that upset point. Yeah,
exactly.
So I think it's good sometimes to have, and it depends on the situation too, like to evaluate why you're at that moment.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, for us, I have no relationship that I can refer to apart from us. So this has happened to us, but I was saying it was more earlier on in the years because we were both still learning about each other, changing, and then at that point in time, we are both working hard to try and climb the corporate ladder and trying to work ourselves up. So all those kind of stresses and challenges, and we weren't living together either, so just not being able to see each other, like that kind of stuff naturally makes you kind of grow apart, and it just depends on how hard you guys initiate doing things together and stuff. And we just had so much on, and on top of that, trying to learn from each other, it creates this kind of space where either you don't want to update them anymore or you don't have a strong desire to hang out with them like it naturally happened. But now, like, I don't think we've ever had these anymore because we know how to work around each other and our challenges.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think I agree in relation to the earlier days.
Yeah.
That's just all trying to figure out, like, us, right? And that's a normal thing because fresh in the relationship, you need to figure out how things work, give or take, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I definitely agree. In the early days, there were situations where I had to think and go, okay, is this me being an idiot, or is it something that is a deeper thing?
Yeah, so leading from that is how to know if you want to end this relationship is usually you would want to end the relationship because there's problems, right? Like either challenges or continuous fighting or just things are different. But these problems, you need to think, do you see that a potential change can happen? Like either you both can work towards it, or if it's a single-sided problem, like do you think that person can change, or are they willing to change? Like you need to think about that. And if they can change, I feel like it's worth sticking around and trying. But if you have brought this conversation up so many times where they have mentioned they will change or we will change, but you don't see that happening, then maybe that's time that you do need to break up. But if it's like a first time occurrence or first few times and you can see that there's small progressions, then, I think it's worth still continuing to try.
Yeah, and look, sometimes the repeat issues, depending on the size of it and the scale and what it is, sometimes that could be things that you can work on. You know what I mean? And like that really comes to yourself as to what you define is workable or not. Because everyone's definition on small and big and medium is subjective, right? So
yeah.
I think it really comes down to how you can handle that particular situation, right?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like in a broad perspective, if you can see that there is potential for change or evolution or like a mold or whatever you want to call it, if you see that there's potential for that, I think depending on the situation, it's worth sticking around. But if it's something where you can clearly see that they're not going to change, or it's happened so many times and they're still not changing, then yeah, like, there's no point sticking with it.
Yeah, and it's just about evaluating your situation, right? And we did the same thing too, right? In our earlier days. Obviously, we had disagreements and stuff like that, but it's also compromising and working with it as well and being open to talk about it.
Yeah, because if you want change, you got to tell them about it. You can't just think that they're going to read your mind and magically change.
Yeah,
you need to voice that.
You can't just assume that other person's going to know how you're feeling or the things that you're doing is telling them those things. Like you said, like no one can read your actions to the T, so it's about talking about it too. And relationships is never perfect.
Yeah, it's
right?
not.
So it's all about fights. It's all about and when I mean fights, I don't mean like you're actually punching each other and that sort of stuff.
Knockouts.
I mean like just you have disagreements, and I think disagreements is healthy to some degree because
it's how you learn about each other. Because if you hold on to it and don't disagree with something that they say or how they feel, then you'll never know that person's true thoughts or feelings behind what you're saying or doing.
Yeah, and to relate this to one of the, I think you're watching a Netflix TV show called Change Days, and it's about relationships where they've been with each other for X time frame, and basically they've come to this resort with a bunch of relationships and they're figuring out whether or not they should break up or move on and stuff like that. It's a challenge or something like that. But anyway, couples that are on this particular show, their main issue is communication.
I think communication and not willing to compromise is the two biggest things that I saw in that.
Yeah, and like there was this one couple who, they have disagreements, but they don't talk about it.
Yeah, they just stay happy. They're like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. It's like, oh no, I'm not angry, but really they are upset. Yeah.
And it's like, face value, they're fine, and then under the rugs, they're fucking upset. And every time something would happen, they just fucking shovel it under a fucking sack of shit. And it's like, dude, like, you need to talk about it because eventually it's just going to bottle up to the point where either you or the other person's going to blow up. And it's like, fuck, man.
And then the other one is another couple where they just continuously argue, but nothing gets resolved because both of them aren't really willing to compromise or come to an agreement. It's just a matter of who's yelling the loudest or who's winning the argument.
So it's the second biggest thing that I would say is listening.
Yeah.
It's stopping and listening to the partner. Because when you listen to that person talk, then you can understand what they're trying to say.
Yeah, but say that you've tried to listen, and these same arguments or disagreements keep happening. When do you know that it's time to just end it rather than just going in circles or doing the same arguments over and over again?
Well, it comes to a point where you need to mutually come to an agreement, right? And if you said the arguments are happening and it's saying the same thing over and over again, well, then it's about evaluating that and going, okay, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Is it really worth pushing forward? Are we willing to work together on it?
Yeah, so I think another thing we were going to say was things are just too different between the two people and there's no compromising. So I'm not saying that the other person or either party aren't willing to compromise. It's just that it's things that they don't think they need to compromise on, and that's completely fine. That's like a value or something that you believe in. And if you don't feel like you can compromise or come to agreement with the other person, then that's something that shows that you guys are very different, and maybe it is better that you guys don't continue to pursue this relationship.
Yeah, it comes down to situational, hey, but it just depends on what the arguing is or what's actually happening.
Yeah, like if it's something as simple as like you like to keep your shoe rack outside, whereas I like to keep my shoe rack inside the cupboards hidden away, like that is too small of a thing to want to argue about.
You guys can talk about that and compromise and come to a mutual agreement. Yeah, or another example would be if one partner wants and prefers words of affirmation and the other partner is not that kind of or that type of person to provide
like they do
that
acts of service or something.
Yeah, and you know what I mean, like your expectation is, I want my partner to give me these kind of words of affirmations, the confirmation.
Like, tell me that you love me or tell me that you miss me, but it's hard for the other person to do that because they don't usually express in words, they express in doing things for you. Then that's something like no one's in the wrong here. It's just that they both have different ways of showing their love, and it's hard to compromise. Like say that they've spoken about it, they've tried it, and it's just not easy or not natural for them to do things, vice versa for each other. Then maybe that's a sign, or that's a thing where makes you realize that you can't stay in this relationship. And it doesn't have to be one person's right, one person's wrong. It's a clear definition that you guys are very different.
Yeah. Another example could be like, one partner probably wants to take the relationship to the next level, i.e. get married or move in together or something like that, but the other partner's not ready. The other partner's still trying to figure out themselves as an individual and them in their own career pathway.
Yeah, that's a really common one too.
Yeah, and that's a common one because both sides have their own rights in terms of, you know what I mean, like what they want to pursue, but it's just not the right time to follow that direction.
Yeah, and then I think last one for me, I don't know if you have others that you want to add, is to think about this in a bigger picture. What I would do is think long term, like imagine how you would feel when this person is not around anymore. Like think 2-3 years down the track or after you've broken up, do you miss that person? Or like what are the feelings that you would feel when that person's presence isn't there anymore? And one example could be you don't miss anything. Like you feel like you'd be happy being by yourself, and that's a sign that there's nothing that you really want out of this relationship anymore. Or say you do feel like you would miss that person, think deeper and be like, what is it that you miss about this person? Is it the character or something about them that you miss? Or are you missing this person because you just want companion or you want someone with you? So it's just like thinking outside of the immediate situation and think outside of in long term and be like, when this person isn't around, what does it feel like?
Yeah, I think when you mention deeper, I think it's about thinking more on that emotional point of view. What does your partner actually provide to you as a partner? It's not about having that companionship or that quick fix of having someone there. It's about what does the relationship mean to you?
And it's just what about that person that you like or you don't like? And if I think thinking it in that perspective does help you think, do you want to continue that relationship? If you still see them in the picture a few years down the track or after you guys break up, then maybe it is worth to keep working on it. There are things that obviously is keeping you there and you don't want to lose them. But if you can definitely feel happiness or freedom or feel better without them, then maybe it's time to just end things.
Yes, maybe it's time to move on and spread your wings. Because who knows, maybe it's not your time.
Yeah. But disclaimer, we don't want to end any relationships or be the ones that end someone's relationship. These are just some points that we would do for ourselves. And obviously there are situations that are more difficult than others. So it really depends on how you feel.
And evaluate your situation.
Yeah.
Because every situation is going to be different as well. And look, to apply what we just basically mentioned, like for me, how I see things, it's more like, well, what would I be like without you? Mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you center my emotions quite significantly.
Yeah.
And you've always been that person to pull me back when I act rationally.
Yeah.
So
irrationally.
Is it irrationally?
Irrationally. So when you just act on your emotions or you don't think about what you do before you do it.
Yeah. So like that's the kind of way that I think is, if not saying that I would, but if we were to split our ways, like how would I feel without you? And it's not just that too, like you've helped me in other ways outside of my emotional stuff too.
But yeah, like for people that are in this situation, I think they've already grown apart. They're just wondering or sitting on the fence whether or not they need to do something about it or just end it. So, yeah.
And look, it's just food for thought too, man. Like there's so many situations and scenarios. It's kind of like, well, it really depends on your situation, how you evaluate it.
But yeah, to end it, communication is key. So always talk things out as best as you can and see what the other person's thoughts are. If they're happy to work with you or you're happy to work with them, then that's a good sign.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about talking about it and then working through it together. But then, if there's no reciprocation, if you know that you're not feeling that well, not well as in feeling confident in this relationship, then maybe, hey, it's time to pull the trigger and move on. So,
but yeah, wishing you guys all the best in your relationship and future relationships if you're not in one yet. But
let us know.
Tips.
Let us know in the comments too, because I personally would love to know if you've been in a situation where you've had to make a call. Let us know how you did it, you handle it, because hey, different opinions and experiences. Yeah,
or if you actually thought a relationship was going to end, but you guys did a massive U-turn and it turned back around and you guys are now happily together. We want to know.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's it. We'll close it here and bye.
See you guys. Thank you so much if you have reached to the end. We really appreciate you for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please share it with your friends or family and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you are listening to.
Make sure you share any topics you'd like us to cover or questions you might have to our Instagram.
Slide it into our DMs.
Bigger. You can also stay in the loop of all the behind the scenes and the release of our new episodes there too. Our Instagram is Ask the Duo Podcast. That's AskTheDuo Man, feels like I'm in a spelling bee competition right now. Alright, that's it for now, and we'll see you back here for our next episode. Bye!
See ya!